Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, all the highest praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, and craft with us. Double honors to the elders, single honors to the apostles, preaching, teaching the word of truth with sincerity as always. And without any further ado, we're just going to get into this lesson here. I just felt through the spirit to do something. Wanting to do something. Instead of just doing some bullshit or whatever, use some time to make a video. And didn't have any lesson in mind, and I didn't just want to get into privacy, even though there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like right now privacy is the main thing everybody's going into. So right now I'm just going to get into this lesson here, going into some of the history. And I actually went to my video topic ideas page document here. All right. And one on the list was, I chose the second one caught my eye. So I'm choosing to speak on that, because it actually made sense. And this was created on June 1st, 2023. This was when this was made on my Google Docs. I use Google Docs to put my notes. So the title of saying out there making all that fucking noise, but the title of this video here is the one that got my fucking eye here is this one that says the original gangs were about honor, morals, and respect. And yeah, I also think of GAD and Native American Indians. Ultimately, that was a gang. And they weren't. And when you go into the scriptures, ultimately, King David and his men, they were a gang. Okay, in no way, shape, or form am I gonna using this to. I'm using the word gang loosely here, by the way, man. Don't be simple and stupid, and think all carnally, man. Okay, we ain't young and stupid anymore, unless you are young and stupid. And we don't have a young and stupid, easy, gullible mindset that's influenced by simple, stupid things that everybody else is into. I used to be like that, but I'm not like that much now. Okay, you get older, and you see these people are a bunch of fakes and phonies, and you choose to go your own lane at some point, man. As you move in life and journey in life, right? And that's what King David was King David's story was like. I'm gonna use his story. I'm gonna use King David's story to emphasize a fucking point here. It's a lot, bro, for the loud tone, things of that sort, bro. I got demons attacking me. They attack me all the time. Satan attacks me all the time. So I raise my voice sometimes. Don't think I'm getting angry at you necessarily. That's just the way I speak and the way I handle things. A lot of trauma been through in my life. So anyway, bro, if saying outside making all that noise can calm down for his ass for a second, Lord willing, this video is edifying and doesn't get too interrupted to block the lesson from this edifying, sincere, marvelous video right here. Lord's will. Yeah, because ultimately you niggas and gangs of today, you YNs and all that shit, alright, you fucking kooky Ray niggas and blunt smoking and blunt rolling ass niggas, you know, y'all gonna die, man, okay? I hate that culture. I don't wish to not relate to it. Sometimes I hate to even sound like how those monsters speak like, or even use certain terms or slang that they use. I hate myself for it, but that's how much I hate them, right? Scriptures say, King David here said, which King David was a leader of a gang, a righteous gang, the ultimate gang, which once again, I use that word loosely once again. From this point on in the video, I'm gonna stop saying that now. But yeah, he was in leader of a gang, and it was a righteous gang. But before that, let me get this one. I hate them with perfect hatred. Psalm 139 and 22, right? The scriptures say, I am a man of peace, but when I speak, it is for war. I want this lesson to go smoothly, but spirits just make situations right now is making spirits go another way. So I'm just going to do this. I'm a man of peace, but when I speak, it is for war. Let me get that one here. Psalm 120 and verse 7, it says right here. Listen to this one. Psalm 120 verse 7, I am a man of peace, but when I speak, they are for war. Come on. Let's see who got that one. Move that out the way. Don't know why they had ads in the app to show you the scriptures, but all right. Showing you how wicked this kingdom is. Psalm 120 and verse 7, and that's just how brother speaks sometimes, and Aurora comes off sometimes, right? You know the word Aurora? Yeah, that one. I am in favor of peace. Psalm 120 verse 7, the scripture right here. Listen to this one right here. I am in favor of peace, but when I speak, they want war. Come. And that's how we feel in the spirit. Day by day we move in our life. You got spiritual demons, Satan attacking you, trying to take your peace from you. Especially because you're in the truth and the faith. And you have your liberties, Don't let Satan also try to come and tell you, you gotta discern, man. Discern, bro. That's ultimately what it is. I can break it down in the simplest way, best way I could, but ultimately some things you learn from experience. And yeah, man, and yeah, I'm in favor of peace, but when I speak, they want war. Right? And that's ultimately what we want. We want peace. Us as the elect, we're our own gang. We're in the elect, the gang of the elect, the hopeful elect. Okay, we're not holding guns. By gang, I just mean a group of people. And I'm not fucking using that to do whatever you niggas wish for and you're up your ass, man. But anyway, man, we're us as the elect. I just say the elect. Us as the elect, bro. That's what we want. We're in favor of peace. But once again, you got things out here that's attacking us in the spirit through people. Sometimes Satan's just trying to strike you in the mind, plaguing you in your minds, certain thoughts, certain shit that happens. And that's also in Ecclesiastes. But anyway, I'm going to come back to this. Matter of fact. So here, just to get some context, in 1 Samuel 21. And that's another thing I want to point out. I might as well speak on since I'm on this lesson here. King David was a humble man. When you go into all the story there, the history there, King David was a humble man. He was very, very humble man. We know King David goes back to Moses. Some of you fake ass Christians don't believe in reincarnation, all that. So anyway, King David was a humble man, basically. And that's ultimately why the Lord chose King David, okay? To prove it is he didn't kill Saul. He could have killed Saul, but instead of choosing to kill Saul, he felt sorry for Saul and didn't want to kill him. All right, because he understood that the Lord was still with him as well. The Lord chose Saul, and that's humility right there. Okay. Now, most men in that position, they would have went ahead and taken that opportunity to kill Saul. So here in this story in 1 Samuel 21, at this point, this was just right after Jonathan and told King David to at this time he was just David. Later on would become the King David, which it was already prophesied anyway through Samuel that David was going to become king. It's just Saul didn't know anything about it. Because Samuel was feared Saul, and so because there was a possibility that Saul would have ended up killing Samuel for that, because Saul was a nigga, basically a madman, Esau today. And so that's why this is 1 Samuel 21. I'll start at verse 1, 2. So 21 and 1 actually. Then came David to Nob to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, The king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, Let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee, and I have appointed my servants to such and such a place. So this priest here ends up giving him the bread, and also giving him the sword of Goliath. Jump into verse 10. And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to Achish, the king of Gath. So David was on the run from Saul. Saul wanted to kill David because he was jealous, and he knew in the spirit that King David was going to take his kingdom. Just after he died. So that's why he was mad. He was just jealous, basically. So this is the part I wanted. 1 Samuel 22 and 2. Because when you look into the story, basically, it's like King David was in his own gang. He had his group of men. I don't even want to use that word, man. But it's 1 Samuel 22 and verse 2. It says, And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him. This is King David, and he became a captain over them, and there were with him about 400 men. So King David was a small group. When they were running from Saul, fleeing from Saul, on the run from him, because he wanted to kill them, basically. And King David had a group of loyal men that were with him. I believe all those men are of the elect today, prophets. Okay, because then you get the dirty, mighty men. I believe each one of those is of the elect prophets. Man of the Lord, man. And then when you jump into 1 Samuel, the 25th chapter, starting at 13. This was when Nabal denied King David's request to give him some shelter and food, supplies for his men, because he was on the run. This is 1 Samuel 25:13. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by their stuff. So at this point now it's 600 men with King David. So that's the spirit right there. And this was King David versus the house of Saul. Okay, King David killed Goliath. That was a great victory. Goliath had to be like King David had to be 7 feet tall. I might guess 7'4", 7 feet tall. Goliath had to have been double that size. So probably about 14 up to 18 feet tall, man. Because his spear, the head of the sharp point of the spear, don't just that alone weighed 15 pounds. I mean, they said, 15 pounds. So imagine just the whole pull alone of the spear had to have been like another 15 pounds for you to, Salakia, 30 pounds, I would say. So altogether, that would have been 45 pounds just to hold that alone. Me, I could barely lift up. I would barely be able to lift up a 10-pound sword. And even a lot of you niggas that are big, man, don't lie, motherfucker. You want to be able to pick up constantly carrying the spear, though. Goliath would carry his own spear, okay? And then he, not only that, but he also had another weapon on his back. Okay, it mentions he had a spear, and then he also had a, I forgot what. But it mentions how he had 2 weapons when you go into it. And that spear alone would have weighed 30 pounds. Not including the whole armor, which would have been at least, I estimate 500 pounds alone to carry that armor. Motherfucker. That would have weighed at least 500 pounds just to carry that alone. 450 at the least. And then not including the other sword he had and the helmet he would wear on his head. So nigga, that whole look at any average tree outside today, because those ain't as big as the trees back in Israel back in this time, bro. That spear alone, when Goliath would throw it, the head would go through any of these average Joe day-to-day trees today, man. If Goliath was to throw his spear at that, and he would never miss his target, by the way, because it mentions how he was a champion. And I saw mention how he was a fighter, trained as a warrior since a child. And then he called King David a child. So King David had to have been at least 12 years old for him to call him a child. Goliath would have been King David's size at just 12 years old. Okay, he wasn't no 7 feet tall or 9 feet tall as it would say there. No, that's a lie, okay? Because when you think about it, he called King David a child. Back in that time, King David wasn't no short dude, bro. King David would have been, back in that time, the average Israelite would have been 7 feet to 6 feet at the least. 6 feet. Okay, because Gabar always goes into it. Used to always say how our rods used to go past our knees, or on our knee, our knee level at the least. Okay, so because there's ancient hieroglyph when they cut off half the skirt and then they would show 3 legs. You can guess what the 3rd leg in the middle one was, okay? That's why you got a lot of these whores out here today. They're addicted to cock, dick. That's why. They used to always get popped left and right and get shoved a big giant glizzies up their pussies, okay? So yeah. So you can laugh about it, think it's a joke, whatever. 1 Samuel 25:13. And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword, and they girded on every man his sword. And by the way, King David only killed Goliath. All he had to do was kill him. And by the way, another good point to make. Saul gave King David his armor. For Saul to give King David his armor, they had to have been the same height. That's just the bonus. More going into that armor specifically, that armor, bro, had to have been weighed at least 100 pounds, 50 pounds at the least. I would say 70, 75, 60 pounds at the least. King David, when he put that on, he said he decided to take it off because he wasn't used to wearing armor. Right? He wasn't in the army. He was just a shepherd. But he fought lions and things of that sort. That's why he was a humble man. Because he ultimately didn't do that. Didn't want to defeat Goliath out of pride or nothing like that. But he ultimately decided to do that to defend his God. He was thinking about the one true and only God. Okay, not many people do that. That's why it's serving the Lord. That goes all the way back to humility. Not many people are gonna do that. Okay. So anyway, when you think about it, for him to decide to take that armor off, it wasn't because it was uncomfortable. It just did. It felt. Because it just felt rough and shit. No, it was because it was heavy. That armor was heavy. He wasn't used to carrying that. So he still wasn't in his man body. As I heard one elder say, one of my elders say. Okay, the reason I say my elder is because it might not be your elder because he's younger than you, but he's my elder basically. But Salakia, anyway, off topic, Salakia, King David, yeah, the armor would have been too heavy, so he would have still been in a scrawny type of body, okay. By the time he reached 30, because that happened when he was 17, when he was just 17. So the height he was when he was 17, Goliath would have been that same size when he was only 12. Okay, that's why it would only make sense for him to call him a child. Okay, because even today, when you look at somebody and you're about to fight, I mean, you don't just call him a child if he's the same size as you. If he's literally the same size as you, or damn near 75% close to your build, you ain't gonna call him just a child. And then scoff him and mock him, because what Goliath was doing was scoffing him and mocking him. He told him, why would you send me a dog like this, a little child? Why, you send me a child to kill me, basically? He was scoffing and mocking about it. You ain't gonna scoff and mock like that and call you ain't gonna get all angry like that and just call someone a child in a fight. If you were to go in a fight, basically, and it was all tense. No, you wouldn't. If they actually look like a child, they ain't even your size. You're gonna laugh about it and mock and scoff them. That's why he called him a child. So that's why it would only make sense for King David to have been. I would estimate once again 6 foot at the least to 7 foot at feet, 7'7", 7'4" at max. Okay, he probably weighed altogether 400 pounds, 450 pounds at the max at that age. Goliath would have had to been double of that. I estimated he would have had to weigh 1,000 pounds. at the least, or a bit more over that at the most. For his armor to be 500 pounds, your armor would have to be half the weight you are. I just imagine too, because if I only weigh 100 pounds. I'm not ashamed to say it's just the facts. It's my body. It is. I weigh 100 pounds. I would imagine in an army like that, I'd wear an armor at least half my size. But then again, that's also you got to include the weapon and the weight of the weapon. So either way, I could be estimating. My estimate could just be a bit off by 10 pounds. Take it off 10 pounds, at least 40 pounds. If I'm 100 pounds or 110 pounds, my armor would have to be at least 40 pounds. My sword to carry it with the other thing. If I'm having a shield on me too, that's an extra 20 pounds. So that would have to be 40. You can do the math. But this is 1 Samuel 25:13. And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And they went up after David about 400 men. And after David about 400 men. And 200 abode by the stuff. So he had 600 men with him at that point, fleeing from Saul. Oh, and by the way, King David had an ugly side. All right, let's jump to verse 13. Yeah, that was 13 right there. That was the ugly side of King David. Because you jump on down, let's jump to verse 33. This is what Nabal's woman had to tell King David. King David was about to commit murder. So King David had an ugly side. Right, reminds you of the toughest gang banging nigga today, right? So in a sense, we are kind of like not really though, because ultimately we're on the grace of Yahushua. Yahushua came to renew us and make us holy and pure again. But in a sense, it's like we ourselves were supporting the adulterer and the murderer. Right, that's basically what the head of your modern day today you would liken that to the modern day gang leaders today who commits adultery and murders, right? Well, ultimately not really, because Yahushua came to, once again, Yahweh, don't let that go to your head. Yahushua came to renew our slate, to make us clean and pure again through his blood on his sacrifice. Okay, Yahushua was a pure man, so by no way in any means are we any of that anymore? No. I just found that interesting. But this is first because basically we are fleeing from our old ways, our old man, which was in the life of sin. 1 Samuel 25:30. So that ultimately is what it is. What this truth is about. 1 Samuel 25:33. And blessed be thy advice. So this was David talking to Abigail. He was about to go and kill Nabal and all his men. This is King David's reply to her. After she blessed him and gave him 1,000 all these provisions, basically cakes, raisins, and supplies and sustenance. This is 1 Samuel 25:33. And blessed be thy advice. David again here speaking once again. And blessed be thou which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with my own hands. For in this very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hadst hasted to come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. Now this is Abigail that's going to speak here. When you go back up earlier in the verse, First Samuel 25:26. Now therefore, because King David blacked out basically, he was about to crash out basically when he told his 400 men. He made the 200 stay with the supplies. He made the 400 men start girding their swords. He blacked out basically. That's basically what you would have called in modern day terms a crash out moment. King David was about to have, which ultimately, in a way, you can also say, since the Lord really looked upon King David with favor, he could have ended up allowing King David to do that, and then have been not even charging him against him for that sin, because that was the Lord's man right there. That was his boy right there. That was his homie right there. But the Lord being merciful and the Lord keeping his ways, he decided not to let that be the case here. He made Abigail to rush in to stop the situation. Because it says right here, 1 Samuel 25:26. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself. Now when you read this in the GNT, it says murder. 1 Samuel 25 GNT. Starting at 25. In the GNT, 1 Samuel 25:25. Please don't pay any attention. Let me see. 26 actually. This is Abigail speaking once again. It is the Lord who has kept you from taking revenge and killing your enemies. And now I swear to you by the living God that your enemies who want to harm you will be punished like Nabal. On down to 31. Then you will not have to feel regret or remorse, sir, for having killed without cause. Basically, that's what you would call murder, right? To kill without cause. Because in a way you can argue and reason, like, because it was understandable King David's frustration, and you could have been like, well, Nabal was an asshole. Basically, he should have helped King David, knowing his situation he was in, knowing he was anointed by Samuel. He should have had more respect for him. So I understand why King David would have wanted to do that, but then again, that would have been murder though, because Nabal basically was an Israelite, and the scriptures do say do not murder. But then again, you can argue the law says to give to your brethren if he's in need of, and basically King David's life was in danger. So in a sense, Nabal would have been putting King David's life in danger, hating his brother. Basically, that's murder. So in a way, he already committed murder. So King David to murder him would have been like he would have been in an even stand. If you want to go law for law, verse for verse, we know the law. We are the children of the law. Of this seed line lineage of King David. Lineage, right? So, jumping on down, it says down here, King David ends up saying in verse 33, he himself out of his mouth says, I almost committed murder. King David here speaking once again, the king himself. Thank God for your good sense and for what you have done today in keeping me from the crime of murder and from taking my own revenge, right? But then again, you could argue. You could argue then, though, it's not like Nabal knew King David or who he was. I believe sincerely he didn't really even know what the hell was going on. So in a way, it was like through the spirit, it's like no though. King David would have went completely left if he had killed the ball there. I would assume, because then those other men would have been innocent. He was gonna go and go up to kill, and once again, he was an Israelite. He was an Israelite. Now, if it was a heathen in heathen territory, that would have been different. King David would have actually been because the law would have allowed us to go into other unmarked territories that's of the heathen, and to kill everything in there and take everything in there. So that's just the point. I just wanted to speak on that, just to make a video, to do something. Hopefully this was edifying. Shalom and about a ball. And just the fun factor there, King David was rolling with 400 men at first. Then he had 600, I believe. King Saul put him over 1,000. When you go into 1 Samuel, (18:13) in the NIV. So he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men, and David led the troops in their campaigns. This was just right after King David came back from killing Goliath. In verse 10, the next day a spirit of distress sent from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied inside the house while David played the harp as usual. So I imagine too, just interesting, Saul probably prophesied that King David would be king there, and then that pissed him off and made him want to throw the spear at King David. Plus, from all the regret and feeling the failure, having low confidence at the time in himself, pride, and hurt his pride, and he wanted to kill David there. So that's the point. Shalom and a bar.